Fresno, California, 1921. Donald Wilbur Barton, son of Harold Dwight Barton, 95 years ago, and today. Let's start at the beginning. And his mom, lovely Esther Eliza McBride. Don's sister, Geraldine, was just 2 years older than he. Interesting, these early snapshots of Don are with animals and girls. Growing up on the Barton Ranch in Modesto during the Depression wasn't easy. The ethical values of Grandma Barton, his mom, and the Barton family influenced his character and work ethic. He went from a two-room schoolhouse, high school, and graduation from Modesto Junior College, then worried about going up to the big university, Berkeley, to study genetics. No need. His preparation was just fine. His boarding house was just 2 blocks from this gate. At church socials, early on, he meets the beautiful Virginia Winston, and he falls in love. Don still hasn't finished his baccalaureate at Berkeley. He enlists in the then Army Air Corps Reserve, and he's called up immediately to New Mexico. Cadet Barton is trained as a bombardier on the Norden bomb site. Later, he receives a second rating as a navigator. Now it's Second Lieutenant Barton who joins his B-17 bomber crew, soon to be sent in action. But he can't let that happen yet. Someone else is waiting. Ginny and he get engaged the day this photo was taken. Then they become Mr. and Mrs. Barton. But they're not together long. He's off immediately to Peterborough, England, to the bomber base. After that, 19 successful missions. His was the first plane the Messerschmitts got. He was flying lead bombardier in a 36-wing formation. He parachuted, hit the top of an Alp, broke his leg, and waited for his captors. They brought him down to the town. When the soldiers sent the innkeeper's son to help him, Don gave him the 2 British pennies he was carrying. Then medical attention, interrogation, prison, up near the Baltic until the end of the war. Although liberated by the Russians, it was the American Air Force who evacuated them on 17s and 24s. It was the largest repatriation of American military ever. First Lieutenant Barton is back now with all his medals, 2 Purple Hearts. His war injury is very serious. Balboa Beach provides some therapy, food, rest before they get back to Berkeley. Ginny finishes her baccalaureate, and the plan: start the family. Their first son, Paul, is born here. And as much as Don would love to be carrying Paul around, the books are calling him. The books and hundreds of hours on the microscope dealing with tomato chromosomes for his PhD. Degree in hand, the Californian accepts a postdoc at the University of Missouri. His research is being sponsored by the Atomic Energy Commission. The attention after the Second World War was on this fearful cloud, so Don researched radiation effects on you-know-what. It was also the time in Missouri to seek the real job, the job of the future. He had two great offers, one from the city of New York, and actually Manhattan, Columbia University. The second was the New York State Agricultural Experiment Station in Geneva, New York. And we certainly know he chose upstate New York, tenure and a professorship at Cornell University. According to Don, the ride across the country to Castle Street was eventful, as you can imagine, with a 2-year-old, Paul, and a 3-month-old, Ken, but they arrived safely. Although successful research went on in Don's new position, family was the most important aspect of Castle Street. Donna joined the boys. Then Alan came along. Although tomatoes had been Don's specialty, the new issue at the station was a virus attacking the peas. The Bartons in the 50s exemplify the time. Family, friends, partying, neighbors, and hard work. It was on sabbatical leave in Oregon, running trials of the virus-resistant peas he had developed, that Don decides to accept the directorship of the station he is offered. When released, that variety became the predominant one for frozen peas in the United States for years. The next 22 years under his leadership greatly expanded the envelope of agricultural research and enhanced further Cornell University's prestigious status. Early on, Dr. Barton knew that representing the station internationally was important, but most important was access to Albany for funding, for new buildings, for the phenomenal expansion that happened in the 60s. New laboratories, new research positions, new technologies, computerization. That period had tremendous impact on today's station. Not always working, bare boating in the Virgin Islands was one getaway. Family life in what they still today call the old director's house was amazing. Great costumes for New Year's. Mothers visiting from afar. And even a few lovely weddings. Great parties. Mrs. Barton often entertained visitors, sometimes on short notice. A Rockefeller luncheon might mean 20 state troopers eating on the porch, or Ken and Donna greeting the governor. Soon to retire the directorship, Don is selected to head the research component at IRRI, the International Rice Research Institute in Los Baños, the Philippines, for a year. What research could be more important than studying the largest food staple in the world? Ginny taught English to the wives of Indonesian rice farmers and researchers. Snapshots back home again detail the community service events, parties, friends, and even a visit from their Chilean daughter with her family, recalling the year she had lived with the Bartons as a high schooler. My, how the Bartons have grown up. As an international consultant on agricultural research, Don felt he was a missionary. Mrs. Barton's work with literacy volunteers brings a visit from Senator D'Amato. And oh, the 80s, what memories of the first grandchildren. Katie, then Nikki, then Jessie. Actually, Kathleen, Nicole, and Jessica. Snapshots with Brian usually have a golf club or a fishing rod. It took 40 years for the surviving crew members to see each other again. Later, they had annual reunions. Here in Texas, 4 of them were to be the first POWs to receive the new POW medal that Congress had established. As Don told a questioning journalist, it wasn't one you tried for. The 80s end with Dennis's St. Nicholas. And summer takes the Bartons up to Maine, to the landing school. Paul's boat building class launches a beautiful yawl. Ginny has an exhibit of her Chinese brush paintings for a community fundraiser. Don will list for you the 17 states they traveled through and the 33 Canadian trailer parks they visited. Guests of the Austrian town of Telfs, 50 years later, the innkeeper Joseph Harting meets them at the airport. And what does he take from his wallet? And Don honors the memory of his lost comrades. The 1990s snapshots tell many different stories, besides catching rainbows. Friends and family stand out. Parties on White Spring Lane, vacations in Maui, a Christmas picture with growing grandchildren, and a delightful trip to Russia to visit Cousin Erica's family. "60 years. What a celebration the 60th wedding anniversary was. No trouble passing the microphone around here. So many good words about the Bartons. The sad part, too. It would be the last time the entire family would be together. Ginny was gone 3 years later. But what memories. Ferris Hills, Don's new community, is filled with lovely people. He makes new friends, sometimes gets with a bit of a rowdy group, and sometimes old friends move in. But the great thing about Don is he's not confined by a retirement community. He still maintains contact with his Geneva crowd and Forum and geriatric pilots. He has a life. The Barton family reunion beckons, and he's off to California, with the descendants of Perry Franklin and Elizabeth Jane, his grandparents. Don is the oldest living descendant of Grandma Barton, the woman who influenced his life on the farm as a kid. On her 100th birthday, she's going to blow these candles out, as Don's children, thousands of miles away in Geneva, did the same thing. It was at Ferris Hills after the reunion that I first met Don. He was known for his costumes. He sort of entertained at the children's Halloween party. My neighbors at the villas know him more in a different outfit. On our first trip, I loved the way he posed for pictures and greeted people. Then California called again as guests of Jerry and Janet Barton. This time I got to meet some of Perry Franklin and Elizabeth Jane's descendants. Wonderful people. Back at Ferris Hills, we had a 90th party for Don. I can only say one thing about the Galapagos because there's so many snapshots from there. It was his making the turtle talk that impressed me most. Another trip, a cruise, the British Virgin Islands quite recently. We love the activity, we love the food, we love the nightlife and the music, and the exercise on the water was fantastic. An essential part of Don's life is responding to community invitations to address a group or a whole town. He brings to these often patriotic occasions a vibrant historical presence and always some positive, uplifting message or reminder. Veterans of every era seemed eager to shake his hand and to thank him. One of our many trips brought us up one of Dominica's 365 rivers. We were with Fonzie, our friend, and Don found a Chinese researcher at the country's agricultural experiment station. Alaska. Don introduced me to Alaska, and you can imagine what we do there. Toronto, the largest Caribbean celebration in North America. Bend, Oregon, the most welcoming, friendliest family in the world. The Spruce Goose, Oregon, the largest wingspan of an airplane in the world. Why the crazy selfie? Don first gets to meet Brandon, his first great-grandson. And what a surprise! Almost 2 years later, Brandon has a surprise. Kayla, Don's first great-granddaughter. And lastly, we can't forget our winter trips to Florida. We have such a great time, and I get to see my sister and brother-in-law. Don's philosophy is plan for the future and be there to carry it out. So we'll end this with his plans. Get back to the islands and do that riverboat trip. Enjoy my meetings with War History Forum, my pilots. Put back the old photos Adrian took back onto my fridge. Keep on responding to those speaking invitations. Get my dahlias in. I must add new videos to my cloud site. Keep in close touch with my children, grands, and greats. Do my costume thing. Enjoy many more eclipses from that Ferris Hills patio. And you know what else. And yes, it's great to get this card each year.